Welcome back, guys, to the next episode of the Big Gay Overalls podcast. Super excited to be back again. It's amazing how fast a week goes. Like, I feel like I do this and then I'm like, whoa, got to get another one done. It's like coming up to Sunday. And I'm doing this one today early on a Sunday morning. We're about to go away. It's my birthday tomorrow. So we're going away for a couple of days. So I thought, well, I better get it done. Because I know that some of you like to listen to the schedule, but to those who listen, thank you. I appreciate you. If you subscribe, thank you. I appreciate you. Drop us a comment, drop us a rating. They all love that stuff. This week, so last week I talked about the power of living authentically. And then I went on TikTok and I did a thing about the converse of that is like, what are some of the costs of living inauthentically? Well, I just turned the air conditioning on because it's a bit warm in my office. What are some of the converse effects if we're living in that inauthentic state? So I thought I'd talk through some of the stuff that I experienced and what it can feel like, because there's great power of living authentically and understanding the freedom that comes with that. But when you're stuck in that space where nothing feels right, it can be really hard and overwhelming to even think about moving, from that space. So, when I say living inauthentically, that sounds really heavy, like just, ugh. And it is like but it's only when you're out the other side that you realize like how heavy it is and how much it like wore you down. And from the outside, it doesn't always look that way. It doesn't look heavy. For most of my life, I didn't even realize that's how I was living or existing because I didn't know any different. It just felt like this is what life is. Surely everybody feels like this. And I was doing the things that I thought I was supposed to do. So I was being a good girl. I was ticking the boxes. So this is as good as it gets. I grew up in a small rural town where there were rules about who you had to be: polite, hardworking, good country girl. I checked the boxes, except maybe being the straight, feminine country girl. I was always a bit of a tomboy. But I wore the mask. I did the things everybody expected. And to everybody else, I looked like I had my life together. But inside, when I bothered to sit with it, I could see that I was unraveling, but I didn't often sit with that because that was uncomfortable and I didn't like that feeling. So I just push it to the side. I always made the joke that I used to have, a lovely set of matching Louis Vuitton baggage. It was just tucked away neatly that we never poked around it until I started. And that's the tricky thing about when we're living inauthentically. To the world, it looks like you're thriving, but when you really sit with yourself and look, it really can feel like a quiet, slow suffocation. Like when that little voice talks to you and goes, is this it? Is this as good as it gets? Like, wow, that's not great. So I guess when we talk about living inauthentically, and we talked about the power of when we do embrace our authenticity, all these big words, but, there's a cost associated with living like that. And it affects every part of our life, our body, our mind, our relationships, our work, even if we don't consciously realize it. And the signs are really subtle at first. So, and can be hard to see. And like, I can only see what I experienced. Now I'm out of that space and I look back and I'm like, oh, fuck, that makes sense why I felt this, did that, had trouble with this, didn't feel connected here, or a whole raft of things. And when I was talking on the TikTok live, I was talking about the fact that it does take, like, our bodies are amazing things. They're just incredible. Like, stuff that we're feeling internally, emotionally, or spiritually, or, mentally, however you want to frame it, manifests itself in the physical. And we often overlook that and we don't think that. So your body knows when something's wrong, even if your brain won't acknowledge it or hasn't even caught up to it yet and figured out that this is not right. When we're living a life that doesn't align with who we truly are, really has this low level hum of constant stress and anxiety. And it's almost like I was thinking about the other day because the power went out. You're like, wow, it's really quiet without the power. Like, but I had nothing on. Why is it suddenly quieter? And then you realize when your electricity's on in the house, there's always this low level hum of something. And then when it's gone. So that's a bit like the switch from, inauthenticity to living authentically is like you don't have that low level hum and you don't realize it's gone till it's not there. And for me, there was, I carried a lot of tension in my chest. I had like bone deep exhaustion, like no amount of sleep could fix it. I would literally be on my way to a client and I'd be like 45 minutes, half an hour early. I'd just pull over the car beside the road, put the seat back, go to sleep for half an hour, set an alarm. Like I was sleeping so much. And now I realize that's a way of avoidance because when you're asleep, you don't have to think, you don't have to feel, you don't have to do anything. And, now I realize through the work I've done with therapy and clearly endless conversations with my wife is that because like that pretending and that constant acting, the faking it is so draining on our system. It's like running a marathon every day, but you never finish. You never cross the finish line. And over time, that stress doesn't just stay in our head. It can, that exhaustion leads to other physical problems like high blood pressure, digestive issues, bad immunity. And some of us even turn to unhealthy coping mechanisms, whether it's overeating, drinking, or just numbing ourselves out just to get through the day. And these solutions only add to the problem, though. And I know, like, I would eat. That was my thing. And sleep. They were my two go-to things. Is like when I was eating, I felt better. And when I was sleeping, I didn't have to feel anything. Didn't have to deal with the noise in my head. Didn't have to deal with anything. And then they compound and lead to other physical issues, you know. And then when we flip also to talk about the toll on our mental strain, like our brain is a huge electrical that it's producing energy, and then we've got all this other stuff in it. It's like working overtime. And so much mental weight you carry when at your core, like it's not nothing's right. It doesn't fit. And it feels like you're always hyper vigilant because you're carrying this secret that you're always worried someone's going to find out and then the world's going to end. And this constant anxiety can spiral into, depression, low self esteem, isolating yourself because you don't want to be seen. And for me, the worst part was this nagging sense that I didn't belong anywhere. I'd be in a room full of people, friends, family, whatever, and I'd feel totally alone because no one knew the real me. How could they? I wasn't letting them in, and I certainly wasn't going to. And when I did feel like I was kind of like included in a group of stuff, I still didn't feel like I belonged there. And I felt like I was always just on the outside. I mean, fuck, I built a whole gym so I'd have something to belong to, but then you're still on the outside because I couldn't give all of myself to those relationships. And it's exhausting to keep, that part of you locked away and to be constantly guarding. You're like on guard 24/7. And it's, like I talked about being in the closet as in a prison that I had the key to. Well, this is like living in that prison, but you never open the door. Or if it's a house and you never open the door to that room that you never go into, that's where your truest self is. And you never go in there. Because I don't want to unravel that because all of this other stuff is going to crumble. All this lovely facade and beautiful house that I've built around it, it's going to crumble. And, that's our greatest fear. And, like I said, I built these communities that I felt like I could belong to. But I realized that now looking back, like being inauthentic just impacted my relationships as well as, me in many, many ways. And, most of my connections were superficial for a very long time. And when you're not showing up as your true self or even a close version of that, I don't know that, we necessarily walk into a new room and we're completely 100% us. But, we're usually closer to it than not if we're living authentically. But when we're not in that space, all the relationships tend to be very superficial, very shallow, very surface level. You know, you avoid certain conversations, you only talk about safe topics, how's the weather, how's the kids, and you make the conversation about them rather than about you, which makes you look like an amazing person because you seem very interested in them. But then after a while, people start to click that they never find out anything about you. There's none of that reciprocity in the relationship. And you tend to then just go along with what others want to keep the peace. But deep down, you're like feeling unseen and misunderstood. And that creates more conflict within you, going, why won't anyone see me? Even though it's your greatest fear that someone sees you, and we're not going to let anyone see us. And it's this fucking vicious cycle that just spins round and round. So, you know, as an example for me, like I used to go to these events and gatherings where everyone was, you know, into whatever it was. I wasn't into it. And like, I'd just go along with it. I'd do what was expected. I'd laugh and cheer and pretend to be interested just so I could be included. And afterwards, I'd be so drained and even disconnected. Like, I felt like I was performing for an audience that didn't know me in a show that nobody cared about. And there was always conflict. Like, I would be really good friends with a group and fit in, and they'd think I was the best thing since sliced cheese, and then bam, it would turn. And I've often said, like, I tend to be very polarizing. People either really love me or they really hate me. There's no in between. And they switch from the love to the hate, like in a blink. And a lot of the time I was dumbfounded. I was like, how the fuck did that just happen? Like, what happened? And they're saying I'm a narcissist and this and this and this. And I'm like, that wasn't who I was. And I was just couldn't understand it. And I was like, so I had so much conflict and miscommunication relationships. And because when you're not able to be honest with what you need, people can't meet them. So then there's always that conflict. And that can lead to then us being resentful of them. But, you know, you don't know what you don't know. They don't know something, they can't meet it. But we had this like impasse. And there's resentment on both sides because they're like, what do you keep wanting from me? Like they don't know. And maybe you say yes to things that you don't want to do, or you don't say something when something bothers you. And over time, those little compromises build up into arguments that leave everyone confused about what happened. And I have lived that, and it's a shit show. And I would always be hurt and confused at the end. But now, like through the journey that I've been on, realize that fuck, I caused the shit show. Not intentionally, it was just a protection thing. You know, so I would take on things for people or projects or even, you know, at work because I didn't want to do it, but I didn't know how to say no. And then I'd get overwhelmed, and then I'd be snappy and resentful that I had to do it. And they thought I was just a cranky old bitch. But the truth was I was like drowning because I couldn't set boundaries. I didn't even know what boundaries were. Didn't even understand that concept. And, you know, I made a switch at one point in the gym going, okay, well, I can't be resentful if somebody takes advantage of me if I'm going to offer them something. So I offer them a free month to help them out or whatever, and then they do the dirty on me or whatever. And that used to really piss me off. But then I got to the point where I was like, if I'm going to offer something, I need to offer it without expectation, offer it freely, because I can't control the outcome. So that made that stuff a little bit easier, but I still didn't really understand the concept of boundaries and protecting my boundaries and setting boundaries that were going to protect other people as well. And sometimes, like, we hear the term thrown around a lot, like codependency. I mean, if you're living inauthentically and not being you, you might find yourself prioritizing others and their opinions over your own, and you start looking to them for validation, approval, or even your sense of self-worth. Oh, I got included in this. Or, you know, you're just doing something that's going to keep the other person happy, keep the peace. And that's not connection. That's just more losing yourself. You know, I remember one of the first romantic relationships I had with a guy, or even with my catalyst relationship. Let's just keep it to the this space. Is that I agreed with everything. Everything was her terms. When where to eat, what to watch, how to spend time, like that when I had my own time, like I was doing my own thing, I couldn't go and do certain activities because then it might mean I was out of reach if she needed me. And because I thought like disagreeing or pushing back might push them away. And I was like, oh, I don't want that. And because she would often withdraw. And that became a challenge. And over time, I completely lost track of what I actually wanted, who I was even. And it didn't work. Clearly, the relationship didn't work. And now that I'm in the relationship that I have with Sharon, like I understand that, we want to do things for each other because we want to take care of the other, not because we just want it all our own way. So we would rather put our own stuff to the side to take care of the other, but not for like so that nothing goes wrong. But it's like I want to care for you and help you, not if I don't do this, it's going to cause an issue. I don't know if that makes sense. And it's really hard to live in that space where you've then again it's perpetuating that cycle is like I'm not getting anything back, I'm not being seen even though I desperately don't want to be seen, but I do desperately want to be seen but I don't. It's this constant ping pong all the time, and when you're out of it you're far out. How do I even survive like that? How did I even exist? And I was there's strains on family and other relationships. And I was married to a man for the best part of 17 years, and I loved him and cared about him. But I wasn't honest with who I was or what I needed. I was doing the thing to tick the boxes and the things that you're supposed to do. And all the things that everyone said Lisa wasn't going to have, Lisa had. And that created a distance. Like when I look back now, that's very much there was a wall, and I didn't know how to break it down, and he didn't even bother. So we just kept existing, working, paying bills, and it wasn't fair to him or to me or the life, we were trying to build. And, when I eventually came out to him, that was part of the conversations like, you deserve to be happy. And I'm not the person that can make you happy in this version of our relationship. And that's not right, and it's true. He's a good human. He's done nothing wrong and deserves to be happy and lead a fulfilled life and have a relationship of reciprocity. And that's not what he had. So, when I could finally own that part of me, it was very empowering to be able to say, you need this. And I'm not the person to give it to you. For the first time, I felt like I was being honest about who I was and what I could provide, and I see a lot of relationships where people feel like they're coming out. I don't see the relationships; it's just Facebook posts. But they want to come out, and then they still stay in that relationship, and then it turns toxic at some point, and it's not healthy for anybody because it just doesn't work. It builds up those resentments, and when you're living inauthentically, you feel like you're wearing an outfit that is not yours. Like we all know when we put on a perfectly fitting t-shirt or outfit and you feel good and you're owning it. But when you're wearing something that's too tight or too loose or just wrong, you keep pulling at it and adjusting, trying to make it fit. And it just never does. And for me, I felt like I was acting in a play and I didn't audition for it. I was just dropped in the middle of it. Here you go. And every day was a performance. And I was wearing this costume that wasn't mine. Like absolutely wasn't mine. And in the, 4.5 years since I've started, embracing who I am, like you can see how I've just embraced more of like what makes me comfortable. I've got a shorter haircut. I now look at something and go, no, I'm not wearing that. This is what I want to wear. I wear things that make me feel comfortable because I don't feel like, oh, well, I'm going to a wedding, I should wear a dress. No, I'm going to wear pants and a shirt because that's what makes me comfortable. And that's, the way I'm embracing like what being authentic to me feels like. And having that boundary going, I'm going to do what makes me comfortable. So it's not like that's all heavy stuff and it's hard and it weighs on you. And I'm not discounting that at all. Like it is hard. But I am an example, and there are many other examples out there where you can break out of it and start to change the patterns. And it doesn't have to be huge. You don't have to, come out to the entire world. You don't have to. And even if your authenticity struggle is not around your sexuality or your identity, there'll be something in you that doesn't feel like it's fitting. This isn't just an LGBTQI plus thing. All of us in lives have moments where we feel like, it might be in a job, it might be in a relationship. But the first step to breaking out of it is acknowledging that something doesn't feel right and coming out to yourself that something doesn't feel right here. And then sitting with it and going, what is it? What doesn't fit? And, start teeny tiny. Do something that is fail safe. Like it's not going to go badly if you start with this. So maybe you tell a friend you don't really enjoy the weekly trivia nights that you're going to, or the weekly craft catch up, or whatever. You've been going to it for years, but you're like, just, you know what? I'd rather be at home with Netflix and a blankie and, or a good book. Or maybe admit to yourself that the job or the career you're in isn't what you really want. Maybe you're stuck in an office 9 to 5 and you think, I really want to work for myself, or I want to be a writer or be a thing. Then do one small thing that sets you up for that to create that identity within you. Maybe it's as simple as sitting down and reflecting on your values and like, what do I care about? What matters to me in life? What matters to me? What makes me feel good? What ticks? And practice honesty. Like it takes practice. It's not fucking easy. Being authentic doesn't mean airing all of our secrets at once and just, here I am. It's starting to share little pieces of your truth, but start like where it's safe. And, you might have your very best friend. You can share something, even if it is something seemingly superficial about your job or a hope or a dream. Like, I'd really like to be an author, because they're not going to laugh at you. They're not going to judge you. They're going to treat you with love. And then the more you do it, the easier it gets to do it. And when I finally admitted to myself and then eventually the world, hello podcast, that I was gay, it didn't solve everything overnight. And it still hasn't fucking solved everything. But it opened the door and it let in some light. And I was like, oh, and it let out some of that staleness and that heaviness. And layer by layer, like I'm an onion, to quote Shrek, one of my favorite movies of all time. It's maybe I am the ogre, but it's like an onion. You just take away layer by layer, and there was a lot of crying. We talk about peeling onions. There was a lot of tears, but started peeling back all of the disconnection and the misalignment, and just started little by little stepping into a life that was waiting for me that I didn't even know was possible. I didn't even know it could exist. So, now, and as I said last week, it's like I feel like I'm living this life that I didn't even know could exist and that I would even ever have. And it's amazing, but it still takes constant work. Like I have to constantly, but to work on myself and to, not slip back into old patterns and old beliefs, because, it's really hard and you need to have a tribe around you to stop you doing that and to call you out and say, hey, you're doing that thing again. Like that's the way we do it. So not that I'm not here to give advice. I'm not a guru. I'm not a, anything like that. But if you are listening to this and something triggers in your gut and you feel that tension and feel like that sense that something in your life doesn't fit, you are not alone. I guarantee you every single human being on the planet feels that. It's whether we want to acknowledge it or not. And living authentically isn't about flipping a switch. And if you've seen the Book of Mormon, flick a light switch, goes away. It's not about that. It's about taking one step at a time towards the life that you want. And, I talk a lot that Sharon and I are creating and curating intentionally the life we want. We talk all the time about, we might get an invitation. Do we want to do this? Well, no, it doesn't fit with this, or this doesn't make me feel good. Great. Then we're not doing it. And we're very intentional about who we let into our space and how we let them in. And if we feel like something just doesn't align, then we're like, well, I ain't got no time for that. Bye, Felicia. Done. You deserve to be seen. And I know it's scary. To be known for who you are and what matters to you, and to be loved truly for who you really are, not just for a version of you. And when you can tap into that and start doing it for yourself, that's where the true freedom starts. And just ask yourself, if you don't even know where to start with a blank piece of paper and ask yourself, what do I need to feel whole? And look at it until the pen just starts writing, and you'll fill pages. And you need to start with yourself. You need to love yourself for who you really are and accept yourself. So you need to come out to yourself. And again, regardless what the coming out is, it can be any aspect of your life. But once you're honest with yourself, then it's far easier to own it for other people. So bit of a big dig around today and my brain rambling. But thank you for joining me. Thank you for listening. Thank you for the support. I love and I'm grateful for the comments, the DMs, the interactions. Please, if you're looking for a tribe, come on over and join us at the Embracing My Big Gay Overalls community. We actually have a free 7-day trial at the minute. So you can come and have a look around before you decide if you're going to commit to $5 a month to join us. And we want to grow that space so that it's full of engaged people who are all working through the same stuff. We're all trying to come through these things. And if you want a tribe, as I said earlier, like if you surround yourself with people who are going to help you stay on the path to being who you are and not accepting less of a life than you deserve, then that's the place for you. But if this episode resonated, or I'd love to hear from you, you can connect with me on my website, biggayoverallspodcast.com, or on the socials. I'm Big Gay Overalls Podcast on Threads, Instagram, and TikTok. I do a lot of just short form video on TikTok. I do some lives, just, chatting to people. Please pop over, follow, engage, chat. Like, I'm always happy. If you send me a message, I will reply. Or shoot me an email, lisa@biggayoverallspodcast.com. If you're interested in having me come and speak at an event, or come and, share some stories, then I'm happy to do that as well. Just reach out. More than happy to chat about that. So, until next time, I'm away for a couple of days, but I will drop back next week with another podcast, but you'll see me on the socials. And, I'm just going to remind you, and this is going to sound really cheesy, but it came to me like early this morning when I was like thinking about this episode, is like, these big gay overalls I'm in, they fit just right. It's the first time in my life I've had things that fit just right. So, keep stepping into your truth, guys. You are worth it. You deserve it. And, only good things can happen when you start to embrace who you are and the life you want, and started, saying, I deserve this. Just as an aside, Christmas is happening next to the rainbow there, little Christmas house. I've got Christmas trees, and there's other little Christmas stuff behind, which I don't know that you can see. But Christmas has happened in my office, and probably more so. Take it easy, guys. Next time you see me, I'll be older. Don't know about wiser. But I'll see you on the next one. Thanks for listening. Thanks for the support. And keep being you. That's the best gift you can give yourself.